Today, we're diving into one of William Shakespeare's most fascinating and, let's be honest, most complicated plays, The Merchant of Venice. It's this incredible story about love and money that gets twisted into a life-or-death battle in a courtroom. The whole thing has been debated for centuries, so let's break down exactly what happens, from start to finish.
So, at its core, this play is really about three things all tangled up together. You've got this high-stakes quest for love, a desperate need for some serious cash, and a contract so shocking it demands a literal pound of human flesh as collateral. Yeah, you heard that right. And these three threads are what create all the drama.
Before we get into all the details, I want you to think about something. How far would you really go for your best friend? I mean, would you risk all your money, your reputation? How about your actual life? Just keep that question in your head, because that exact choice is what kicks this whole story off.
Okay, so our story kicks off in the bustling city of Venice, a huge hub for trade and money. And it's right here that we meet our main characters, and a deal is about to be made that will change everything.
So let's meet the crew. First, there's Antonio, a well-respected merchant who's also, for some reason, always kind of down. Then you have his best pal, Bassanio, a nobleman who lives large but doesn't really have the money for it. Over in a nearby town, Belmont, we have the brilliant and super-rich heiress, Portia. And back in Venice, there's Shylock, a Jewish moneylender who really does not like Antonio.
So, Bassanio is completely smitten with Portia. But to even have a shot at winning her over, he needs to show up looking like a serious, wealthy suitor. The only problem? He is flat broke.
The magic number he needs is 3,000 ducats. Now, that is a fortune back then, and it is money he just does not have. So what does he do? He goes to his best friend, Antonio.
Now, Antonio is wealthy, but here's the catch. All of his money is invested in his merchant ships, which are all out at sea. He has no cash on hand. But to help his friend, he does something pretty crazy. He agrees to put up his own life as collateral for a loan from the one guy in Venice he can't stand, Shylock.
Shylock sees this as the perfect chance to get back at Antonio, who has insulted him in public for years. So he agrees to the loan, but says he won't charge any interest. Instead, he suggests what he calls a merry bond. If the loan isn't paid back in 3 months, Shylock has the legal right to cut 1 pound of flesh from Antonio's body. Bassanio is horrified, but Antonio, totally confident his ships will be back in time, just agrees to it.
All right, now let's jump over to Belmont for a minute, because while Bassanio is getting the cash, a whole other kind of drama is playing out. And at the exact same time, things are getting messy back in Venice, right inside Shylock's own house.
So Portia, for all her money and intelligence, has zero say in who she marries. Her dad set up this wild test in his will. Anyone who wants to marry her has to choose from 3 chests, 1 gold, 1 silver, and 1 lead. One of them has her picture inside, and if you pick that one, you win. But, and this is a big but, if you pick the wrong one, you have to promise to leave right away and never marry anyone, ever.
And this is a perfect snapshot of the 2 stories happening at once. On the one hand, you have all these princes and fancy guys showing up in Belmont and failing this crazy casket test. On the other hand, back in Venice, Shylock gets hit with a huge personal tragedy. His own daughter Jessica runs off with one of Bassanio's Christian friends, and she takes a whole bunch of her dad's money and jewels with her.
As you can imagine, Shylock is left heartbroken and absolutely furious. He's been betrayed by his daughter, robbed of his fortune, and he feels like the whole Christian community is laughing at him. And all of that anger, it starts to focus on one person, Antonio.
So now we circle back to Antonio's terrible deal. Just as Shylock's personal pain is hardening into pure hatred, Antonio's luck is about to take a nosedive. The worst possible thing happens. Rumors start flying around Venice that every single one of Antonio's ships, the ships that held all his money and his only way to repay the loan, have been destroyed at sea. He's totally wiped out, and there's no way he can pay back the 3,000 ducats.
The due date comes and goes, and Antonio is bankrupt. Shylock's grief has turned into this cold, hard need for revenge. He refuses to listen to anyone's pleas. He just keeps repeating that he wants what's in the contract. He doesn't want the money anymore. He wants the pound of flesh.
And that brings us to the absolute heart of the play, a courtroom showdown where Antonio's life is literally on the line. The law is on Shylock's side, and things look really bad. So, picture this. Antonio is arrested and hauled into court in front of the Duke of Venice. And there's Shylock, standing there with a knife and scales, completely ready to cut out his pound of flesh. He is not backing down.
Bassanio, who is now engaged to Portia, hears what's happening and rushes back to Venice. He offers Shylock 6,000 ducats, double the original loan, to save his friend. But Shylock says no. It's not about the money anymore. He demands justice. He wants what the law says is his.
Just when it seems like all hope is gone, this young, brilliant lawyer named Balthazar shows up. Supposedly, he was sent by a legal expert to decide the case. What nobody in the court knows is that Balthazar is actually Portia in disguise. So Portia, dressed as Balthazar, gives this incredibly powerful speech about mercy. She argues that mercy is this divine thing that's even greater than justice. It's a beautiful plea. And Shylock is completely unmoved. He just wants the law. So, Portia gives in. She says, "You're right. The bond is legal. You are entitled to your pound of flesh." She tells Antonio to get ready, but just as Shylock steps forward with his knife, she stops him. She reveals a jaw-dropping loophole. She's read the contract very, very carefully, and it says he can have a pound of flesh, but it makes absolutely no mention of blood.
And with that one little sentence, the entire trial flips on its head. The very law that Shylock was clinging to so tightly is about to become his undoing.
So here's how it all falls apart for him. Portia rules that, sure, he can take his pound of flesh, but if he spills a single drop of Christian blood, all of his land and money will be taken by the state. And then she hits him with another law. Any non-citizen who tries to kill a Venetian citizen has to forfeit their own life. Shylock is completely trapped. The Duke spares his life, but the punishment is severe. He's forced to give away half his fortune, and maybe worst of all for him, forced to convert to Christianity. In the end, Antonio's ships somehow show up after all, and all the young lovers get married, which, in Shakespeare's world, technically makes this a comedy. But that happy ending feels, well, it feels pretty uncomfortable. Shylock starts the story as this villain demanding a horrible revenge, but he ends it as a man who's been stripped of his money, his religion, and his whole identity. It really makes you ask, in a play about justice and mercy, where do you draw the line? Who's the real villain here and who's the victim? And in the end, who actually pays the highest price?